It's Sunday morning, and what a better place to spend a Sunday morning? Okay,
I thought we'd have a little musical introduction, Joe.
with an emphasis on little, I didn't quite recognize that, but let me go. Let me run through the open. we What better way to spend a Sunday morning with all sorts of audio coming in all sorts of different directions? That is right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is always brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area with everything you need to make sure that your house is in tip-top shape now that the tropics seem to be waking up. And also remember, too, uh, the summer has been very difficult with respect to the lack of rainfall. You might want to get things spruced up for the fall. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. They've got plenty of supplies in case we do get a tropical storm or hurricane, lots of mulch, lots of topsoil, and everything else. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. I
okay.
saw something today on I saw something today on Sunday morning. That wonderful show on CBS from
Yes,
9
the
to 10:30.
history of the ice cream scooper.
Yes, you saw that.
I did.
But they came up with an interesting factoid. They said that 40% of all homes in the United States are at least 50 years old or older, which means that 40% of this country, for
Has
all
an
of you
old
out there
ice
who have,
cream scooper somewhere.
yeah, yeah, those of you who have homes 50 years and older, you may very well need some home renovations in the foreseeable future. A
Ah,
home that old or whatever, you got to look out for all of those cracks. Maybe have to replace a few shingles or maybe even replace the roof.
or maybe you want to get a house like that couple in Missouri with the made out of shipping containers.
That's right. That's right.
By the way, Susan Spencer pointed out and agreed with something that I have contended with for the longest time, and it has to do with ice cream, and it also has to do with Coca-Cola. And I have said for many years that people have told me that I'm crazy until I've actually done taste tests with people on this. Coca-Cola tastes better if when you drink it out of a Coca-Cola glass. And it has to do with the thickness of Coca-Cola glasses, I think, among other things. I personally, I think you have to be crazy to drink Coca-Cola out of an aluminum can. I think that's disgusting, because that's all I do is taste the aluminum can. But if you want Coke to taste good, drink it out of a Coca-Cola glass, and then with a couple of ice cubes in it, and then you tell me if there's not a difference, because there is. And she also admitted about the fact that scooped ice cream in its perfectly circular form because of the aesthetics. Scooped ice cream actually tastes better than, say, sloppily scooped ice cream, and I would agree with that. I would also agree with that.
Yes, I would agree too. For many years, I used to get my ice cream out of the carton with just a tablespoon, and then Renata bought some scoops, and now I cannot have my ice cream without scooping it out. So there you go.
Yep, exactly. All right, so here we are on a Sunday morning. The gods are shining upon us because I think everything sounds good. Uh, we're not dealing with the circle of death, at least not yet. I hope not. I spent a lot of the time this weekend tweaking a few things, and seems to seems to be working. So now I just have to get used to directing this a little bit differently than how I usually do it. However, be that as it may, uh, we seem to see the tropics picking up in terms of activity, and I'm going to immediately go to the satellite loop. In the meantime, welcome to everybody on this Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, and I hope your weekend has been grand. Let me get rid of me, push myself back into the
No, don't
background.
get rid of you, Joe. We need you.
Yeah, but I'm on a, Actually, what I could
I
do is, I think what I could do is just to make my life a little easier, I'm going to make myself a teensy little box in the upper corner. You'll be off screen while we got maps on, but at least it'll make it easier for me to switch it back and forth. Um, Taking a look at the loop this morning, and of course, we, as usually what happens with these things, you go from nothing to having half a dozen tropical waves that they're watching. And I noticed yesterday that the big wave in the middle of the Atlantic um, is disorganized. But if you watch the loop, and I got 48 frames on this loop at the moment, you could see some turning here. There is definitely some sort of middle or upper level circulation, and again, still a bit disorganized, but at least the mechanics seem to be there. Also, for the first time in weeks, if you look at the whole flavor of what the satellite loop looks like, there is no, or if there is, there's very little, or certainly a lot less in dry air that was covering much of the subtropical and tropical Atlantic. That seems to have gone away now, and it's gone away rather quickly. So that I think should be more supportive for tropical cyclone formation.
it certainly does appear that things are starting to wake up a bit. And in fact, if you go downrange about 7 to 10 days from now, there are signals from the various guidance models that we could have some rather significant tropical activity out over the Atlantic Ocean, something that we have not been accustomed to seeing all through the course of this summer so far. We've only had three tropical cyclones, named tropical systems to date. And Joe, if we can somehow manage to tamp down the tropical activity threat for another few more days, at least until midnight, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, this will go down in the record books as only the only the third time dating back to 1953 when we started naming tropical systems. Only the third time that we have not had a single named storm in the month of August, which is incredible. It's amazing. But the way things are looking, we may very well have something pop up in the Atlantic, maybe by Wednesday, a named system. We have two systems that the Hurricane Center is looking at right now. One only has about a 10% chance of doing anything over the next 5 days, but there's a second system out there that they're saying has a 70% chance of developing
Well, that's
into
the one.
a
That's the
tropical
one on the
system.
loop. That's the
Right,
the one in the middle,
right.
with the well-defined mid-level circulation. I have the Hurricane Center's graphic up on the screen for everyone to see. And yeah, that's about as busy as we've seen this tropical weather outlook. That's about as busy as it's been in the last 2 months plus.
It is. It has been very, and you scratch your head and you say, well, wait a minute, it's a La Nina summer. We should be seeing a heck of a lot more activity than what we've seen out there. Some have attributed it to Saharan desert dust, which has been lingering over the Atlantic. Others are saying it's been an unfavorable environment ocean-wise for these systems, talking about shear perhaps, which is cutting up systems before they even have a chance to get their act together. Whatever the reason, as you just pointed out, it looks like all of that is going to go by the wayside, and things are going to really start ramping up finally by mid or late week this upcoming week.
Right, and of course we all know that that dust was a gift from Mr. and Mrs. W.C. Ridgway
Lately,
of Hollyhock,
Hollyhock,
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yes, exactly. All right, so the main thing that really has changed in all of this, and I have um, I'm using the GFS. The European is not going to be too much different. Um, excuse me. Looking at the state of all that dry air that I mentioned earlier, and you see it here in these patches of actually these rather large patches of dark brown. That is all dry air. You also have the flow that's come down. We talked about how the heat wave in Europe has the way the upper air and the surface are set up for that. drawing down some of that hot, dry air southward into Western Africa. That in turn gets spread out across the tropical and subtropical Atlantic. We've also pointed out how the intertropical convergence zone has been running well to the south of where it should be for the entire month of August. And it started around late this week. You can see the profile of the drier air is changing across the tropical Atlantic. It's diminishing. More importantly, you're starting to see the moisture in Africa push northward. And that's really critical here because now you're suddenly going from dry air in the western Sahara to actually moist air as the rainy season gets underway, albeit late. And that kind of shuts off that Saharan dust. So that's a big change here. And you can see the two systems. By the time we get to Wednesday night, we've got the one that's in the central Atlantic now, kind of taking its time moving westward, starts to move a little bit further to the westward, to the west over the next couple of days. Looks like it may actually stall out for a short period of time. And then, of course, you've got another vigorous wave coming off the African coast where something is being indicated there just over or just northwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. We'll wait to see whether that winds up being correct or not. And you could just start to follow along these systems as they move across. Also, the GFS is doing this, and the European not so much. You'll notice that there's a large gyre of moisture in the Northwest Caribbean. There's a low that the GFS forms in the Northwest Caribbean and kind of takes it into the Gulf of Mexico. The European is further south and a little more suppressed with that. So both models have been very consistent in their views. The GFS continues to show eventually what looks like a hurricane in the Southwest Gulf, or in some runs it's been in the Northwest Gulf. The European has been more suppressed, takes it out on the Pacific side, and then develops it when it goes out there. But the bottom line is, especially as we get deeper into these runs and you go out a week to 10 days, the models are definitely picking up on systems out there. Now, whether they wind up being as intense or not as intense as being forecast is a whole nother matter. But the fact that they actually have systems out there is a big change from what we've seen in the last month.
Yes, no question. I mean, like you look in at the tropics, let's say during the mid or latter part of July, nothing, or early to mid August, nothing. I mean, you look for some kind of like a little bit of a smoke signal, meteorologically speaking, that hey, things look like they may start acting up, 5, 10, even 15 days down. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing like that. But finally, here we are sitting on Sunday, the 28th of August. Hard to believe, only a few more days left in the month of August. And finally, we're beginning to see on the mid and long range models signs of development of not just one, but several different disturbances. And whether or not any of those develop fully into a tropical storm or hurricane is yet to be seen. But still, it's more, far more than what we have seen at any time during these last couple of months. So in September looks like it's going to live up to its reputation. The 10th of September, the traditional peak of the hurricane season. Well, it looks like we're on our way toward a rapid ramping up. And Joe, the old saying about there has to be at least one tropical cyclone or hurricane out there on Labor Day. Well, Labor Day is a week from tomorrow. And while it didn't look like we would have that a few days ago, it looks like now there is a chance that we could have a system or two out there in the Atlantic or the Caribbean or Gulf of Mexico basin in time for the last of the big 3 holidays of summer.
Yeah, that's for those, a lot of people are into statistics, and sometimes the thing about statistics is that you can make them, you can kind of make them say what you want them to say if you twist them around just enough like into a pretzel. It doesn't mean that every Labor Day weekend has had a named tropical cyclone. If you go some of these years of these inactive seasons that we've had over the course of history, you'll find there's actually quite a few Labor Day weekends where there were no named tropical cyclones. It's just that the likelihood is if we have an active season, you're going to have a better chance of having something going on. And we've had active seasons, by the way, where for some reason It's shut down around the Labor Day holiday weekend, and then it picks up again. It's active ahead of it, active after it, and kind of quiet in between. The other big change I would point out is also, going down a bit lower in the atmosphere at about 18,000 feet and looking at the upper air. The Atlantic is changing from what it was, which was basically, kind of dominated by uh, a um, a subtropical ridge and ridging off the coast of Europe. That has disappeared. It's flattened out. In fact, if anything, you're starting to see troughing between the Azores and the Canary Islands. You're also seeing higher pressures building in the tropical Atlantic. By the time we get to the middle part of this week, you're actually seeing an upper high that is building off the coast of Africa from the Azores down to north of the Cabo Verde Islands. There's one center there. Another center is building off the southeast coast of the United States. That's something I think we need to pay attention to down the road. You can see this trough that's dropping into the Great Lakes. And there's a bit of a weakness in between the two highs. So right in that alleyway, this is where we're going to see, things move along. Now, whether sometimes the systems can exploit the weakness and recurve. Perhaps that'll be the case, perhaps not. I think that will something we'll be watching at during the course of the week. Fairly deep trough, Joe, drops into the eastern part of the United States by the end of the week. Now, when you have a flow like this in the eastern part of the United States, if you're thinking, oh my, something is going to come up the East Coast. Well, not if you have a trough that looks like something like this.
Right.
You could certainly make a case for something that may wind up heading, say, for the Bahamas, but this whole area here off the southeast coast at the end of this week would provide weakness. So anything that comes into that position would likely move out. Now, if we're talking about something that's further down the road, say for example later in the weekend or early next week, you suddenly have a stronger ridge building off the southeast coast. Now that I think lends an argument that some of the longer range models are showing, Joe, which is to take something out in the Atlantic and maybe take it to the southeast U.S. or to Florida or something along those lines. I don't want to go crazy at this early stage. I mean, we're talking really early stage here because there's nothing there yet. But some of the longer range guidance pointing to maybe the southeast coast as a place of interest down the road. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I've got the European, and you see it does actually take something north of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands a week from now, and toward the Bahamas, and then just sort of lays it there beyond that. So the models are kind of going in this sort of sort of looking at that particular part place geography and saying, hey, this is someplace where we might need to pay a little bit of attention to down the road.
Well, maybe about the end of the first week of September, Joe. The model, the GFS most notably, because it goes out that far, suggesting that there could be a very significant tropical system that is several hundred miles off the southeast coast of the United States. You look at that and you say, wow, could that possibly come up the eastern seaboard? Well, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case because, again, the upper air does not look like it'll be favorable for that to happen. However, it may actually develop into such a system that could cause significant swells along much of the eastern seaboard as we come to the end of the first week of September, and also something that will be making headlines, national headlines, especially since it's been so quiet a hurricane season so far. The very mention or notion that we might have possibly a major system, maybe a Cat 3, dare I say, out over the Atlantic off the eastern seaboard by, let's say, the 7th or 8th of September could make news. And again, we do have something like that that could mean some rather rough seas and swells along much of the eastern seaboard.
So
Like
you were
kind of a
looking.
meteorological agitator, so to speak.
So you were looking at the 0Z GFS, which developed something, looked like it developed something between the Bahamas and Bermuda and then kind of split the difference and brought it up the coast as what looks like a strong tropical storm offshore or just offshore, just in time for the weekend after Labor Day. So it is far enough down the road. Look, my view on these things, as always, is you just kind of you can look at the upper air pattern from run to run, and we see this in the winter time where they take weather systems go in all sorts of different directions. So it'll be pretty much the same idea with regards to how the models handle these things down the road from run to run. So methinks that we have uh, a ways to go, quite a ways to go here. The other thing I wanted to do was, because it just came to my mind, one of the models that I always used to kid about the fact that the Canadian would spin up everything, including your own shoes, if it had the opportunity, um, was unusually quiet through all of this. Even in inactive years, you could rely on the Canadian model to have a couple of Category 5 hurricanes in the mix, but it's been very, very quiet. And even now I can say that in terms of support in the other direction, in that even the Canadian now is actually spinning up some tropical systems along the way. And actually, it's the European. The last few days has actually been more bullish than either the Canadian or the GFS,
Right.
which is a little more unusual. But again, all the you want to see as a forecaster when you're looking at these sorts of things. First of all, you want to see you want to see what we showed you on the satellite loop earlier, which was tropics that are clean and not dealing with Saharan dust and dry air and gigantic upper lows that are shearing weather systems apart. And we certainly have that. Um, you also want to see models. Uh, the more models that show something, the more support you have for something, the more confidence you can have that something's going to come out of this in terms of development. So I think the fact that all the major models here, the major global models are all on a similar page, let's say, although they may be in different chapters, they all seem to be on a similar page, to use a book analogy. So I think that I think that certainly does lend some support to tropical cyclone development down the road.
Well, let's perhaps end this discussion by simply saying that it has been El Bordo
Yeah.
or boring
Well,
the last.
that's killed me the last. I have to tell you quite honestly. I mean, the last few weeks, in particular, but it's actually been longer than that. I struggle when there's no weather going on. When I say no weather, I mean there's always weather going on, but um, when we're not dealing with showers and thunderstorms, and when we're not dealing with rainfall, and you're talking about sunshine every day and high humidity and all the rest of it. Um, I don't know. It's a lot tougher to talk about that subject material than it is to talk about when you have a busier pattern. Let's put it that way.
Well, as our mutual friend Alan Casper used to say, it's boring for me, but when it's boring for me, it's great for all of you. So
That
there you
is
go.
correct.
So
Now,
there it is.
now speaking of which, of course, one thing, the more certain things change, the more they stay the same. And if you're thinking that uh, there's going to be all of a sudden a big flip in the overall the very dry drought-like pattern that covers much of the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic states, think again, because except for late Tuesday, Joe, where I think there's a chance that we could see a few thunderstorms and maybe even some severe weather risk like we saw the other day. Uh, it looks like it could very well be dry, all from a standpoint of rain anyway, all week and maybe even through next weekend.
And even beyond, believe it or not. In fact, I'm going to, I know I have the ability to share. So why don't I share the Climate Prediction Center's latest analysis as to what we may be seeing, not in just the coming days, but even in the coming weeks. And if you're really hoping for a change to wet weather or a return to more tropical, not tropical, but wetter conditions. My goodness,
Just
there is no sign of it.
hang on 1 second. Just give me a moment here. I have to find you.
I'm
Uh,
here. Here I am.
no, I know you're
I'm in the
there.
back of the room right now. I'm waving my hand.
Okay, hold
Um,
on. There you go. I'm just trying to find your. Okay, because I'm doing things differently these days. So just give me a moment here. I see what you're sharing, but I have to get it on the screen. All right, so just a second here. Nope, that's not it. Ah, okay, that might be it. Just a minute. Yes, you have sharing turned on. And let's switch. Okay, go for it.
all right. Well, here is the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day outlook for precipitation running from the 2nd to the 6th of September. And as you can see, across the
Oh, they can't,
northern
hold on,
half,
they can't see it yet.
well,
Uh, yeah, gotta figure this out. Uh, hold on. I'm sorry, Joe. Just give me a moment here.
all right.
Let's
When
do.
the swallows come back to Capistrano.
Yes, the arts. When do those swallows come back?
Traditionally, March 19th, St. Joseph's Day.
And when do the vultures come back to Hinckley, Ohio?
March 15th, the Ides of March.
All right, hang on
They got
hang on a moment. Let me bring you back up on the screen here. Okay, so you're very large right now, so I have to make you unlarge. Yes, exactly. Oh, could I have success? Have achieved? I have achieved success. Go ahead. Now you can go ahead. You can have it. I'm gonna go get some water. So go ahead.
all righty. No, I could use some water too. Um, Over the 6 to 10 day outlook by the Climate Prediction Center, you can see September 2nd through September the 6th, below normal precipitation for the northern tier, the northern half of the United States. And right where we happen to be in the Northeast, you could see that in particular, especially so from Western Jersey on into Pennsylvania, western and central sections of New York State, much of northern West Virginia, northern Virginia, and Maryland. This area here is about 60% in terms of probability, in terms of below normal precipitation. So that's what it looks like on the 6 to 10 day outlook. Now let's take a look and see if it gets any better on the 8 to 14 day outlook. No, it doesn't. From the 4th through the 10th of September, it is again expected to be drier than normal across much of the northern tier of the U.S., especially so again, this time over the northern plains and western Great Lakes. But we're in that too. We're right here in the Northeast. You see the light shade of brown indicating that we're tilting toward below normal probabilities of any kind of significant precipitation. And now let's take a look on the um, 3 to 4 week outlook, the experimental outlook. And as you can see, from the 10th through the 23rd of September, we're now going all the way till the very start of the fall season. The autumnal equinox is on September 22nd. And yet, take a look here in the Northeast, we are the sole region of the country that is still below normal. And as you can see, below normal, especially so for New Jersey, Long Island, most of eastern New York, eastern Pennsylvania, and all of New England. And let's also point out, Joe, that the area of severe drought continues to spread. In fact, on the latest drought monitor, and let's see here, we'll take a look at the northeastern part of the country. There you go. And in the Northeast, we now have extreme drought covering eastern sections of Massachusetts, all of Rhode Island, and now we have severe drought for central and western Massachusetts, most of Connecticut, into portions of the Hudson Valley, and even down into portions of northern New Jersey. There is now severe drought, moderate drought most everywhere else, and abnormally dry. Well, that covers portions of southeastern New York. The only places in New York now that don't seem to have a problem in terms of drought is up in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, and also in northern sections of Maine. But most everywhere in the immediate Northeast, there is some form of dry situation, and in some cases, some really bad situation in terms of the extreme drought, again, for portions of eastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and a sliver of eastern sections of Connecticut. So not very good. Hey, look at over in the southwestern United States, where they had extreme drought just about 2 months ago, and now with all of that rain, now in Arizona, it has now gone down to just simply abnormally dry. You could still find extreme drought, but you have to go north of Arizona into Utah and into a few sections in New Mexico. But where the heavy duty rains have been falling week after week after week in Arizona, that has significantly alleviated the dry conditions, of the severely dry conditions in a good part of the cactus state of Arizona. So things are getting better out there, but still severe, if not exceptional drought for portions of central sections of California, and also for, again, portions of Nevada, and as I said, Utah, where, again, not quite enough in terms of the monsoonal rains or heavy rains have been falling to alleviate dry conditions out there.
And look how many months it took. I mean, it literally did take at least 2 months to get the Southwest just to move the dial from extreme drought to moderate drought, as or just abnormally dry. I mean, it takes a lot of work to alleviate a long-term drought. Looks like at least this morning that we started out with some clouds. I just went back to the U.S. satellite loop here. A little patchy cloudiness covering areas from the Delmarva Peninsula up into interior New England. Those clouds look like they're diminishing somewhat. And this is the time of year where you start to get the nights and the early morning hours. You get these areas of low clouds and sometimes even some fog and drizzle come in, and then it burns off to some sunshine. But I mean, it's absolutely bone dry on the satellite until you get back into the western lakes where we've got some showers and storms, and that's the next cold front that doesn't come into the east until Tuesday. By the way, as we set up the radar, I just want to acknowledge the chairman, Scott Briller, hitting super chat. Thank you, Mr. Scott, most appreciated on this Sunday morning. And
He also points out, Joe, Scott Briller points out that Central Park is only a couple of 90-degree days away from your prediction of 25 90-degree days. And he also points out that I did fairly well. I had predicted 21. And so far, I believe Central Park has had 24 days of 90 or above.
Oh, all right.
Meanwhile, well, Frank Ricco points out Central Park has 24 days of 90 or above. Philadelphia, over 40 days above the 90-degree mark.
Oh, yeah, no, for Philadelphia, it's amazing. You just go a little bit away from New York City. It's certainly, I like to see what the numbers are at Newark, too, because I'm sure they're up there well into the 30s. But yeah, Philadelphia does have a way of running up the 90-degree days in the summer months, as does Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. You can see, by the way, on the radar, as of 11:30 Eastern Time, very quiet from Maine down to North Florida. There's some showers and some storms off the southeast coast. You've got some showers and storms from Wisconsin down into Missouri and parts of Oklahoma, and also in portions of North Dakota. Storm Prediction Center today showing marginal slight risk up in Minnesota and in northwestern Wisconsin, marginal risk down into eastern Nebraska. They've got except for an area that they've drawn in southern New Jersey, southeastern PA, and over the Delmarva Peninsula into easternmost Maryland, where they have a small, tiny area of general thunderstorms. They've got nothing from Maine down into North Carolina. Now, for tomorrow, our friends at SPC showing marginal risk from Michigan down into Illinois and northwestern Ohio into Indiana, I'm sorry, and then Illinois. Nothing from Maine into northern Virginia for thunderstorms. For day 3, which is Tuesday into Wednesday, they've got general thunderstorms indicated, except for Maine and coastal New Hampshire and Massachusetts, northeastern Massachusetts. Everybody else in a fairly large area of general thunderstorm activity up and down the coast. And with respect to WPC's 7-day rainfall forecast, not a lot. The coastal plain showing a tenth of an inch or less from Massachusetts down into North Carolina, the Gulf Coast, Florida, just off the southeast coast, very busy with several inches or more. Also in parts of the Ohio Valley, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half, and in the western lakes. And other than that, the western part of the U.S. is fairly quiet. So back to the upper air, back to North America, and looking at the overall upper air pattern. We're going to take the GFS since that is, excuse me, just a moment. Excuse me. I'm still not 100% recovered from my little COVID adventure. Still got, have to blow my nose from time to time.
Yes.
So anyway, just judging from the upper air, a couple of things that I noticed yesterday. One was the fact that we've got this trough coming into the eastern part of the United States this week that is a bit on the robust side, at least aloft. But you look at the forecast of the surface temperatures, I would have thought that the numbers would have been lower, and they still could wind up being lower, but we'll see. That lifts out. You see the tropical system in the Caribbean that finds its way into the southwest Gulf. We also have a ridge out in the Atlantic that builds up towards Greenland, which is kind of an interesting development there. And overall, it looks like a bit of a flattish pattern with more ridging in the west down the road and a bit more troughing in the east down the road. So that should be something, that's something we probably want to maybe pay attention to. It more than likely will not look like the way the models are showing exactly this way, but it's kind of interesting to see troughs on both coasts and maybe a ridge in the middle. That sometimes can lead to issues and other times not. So I'm kind of covering my bases here. I understand that, but that's just the way it works. But the overall upper air pattern does look a bit busier, though, for the first part of September. I mean, you got a pretty decent flow, if this is correct, coming down from northern Canada into eastern Canada and eventually the northeast and down into the mid-Atlantic states, if you want to believe the depth of these troughs. Also, the other thing I would point out is perhaps a tropical cyclone of some kind out in the ocean as it heads up into the North Atlantic graveyard might be a driver in changing the overall pattern across North America longer term. Maybe that's what we're going to need to happen in order to perhaps get into a wetter pattern in the eastern part of the United States.
That's interesting you say that because normally when we look for a pattern changer at this time of the year or into the fall, we look to the Western Pacific where they have tropical systems that are affecting, let's say, the Philippines or Japan or whatever, and they move up into the polar regions and then kind of slip on down toward, let's say, the Aleutians or the Gulf of Alaska, and they end up changing the pattern. This time now we're talking about a system in the Atlantic basin, maybe changing the pattern. Maybe that may not change the pattern for us. It might change the pattern perhaps for Europe or perhaps Asia. But
well, it could start the ball. It could start the ball rolling, though. It create a change in Europe, which creates a change in Asia, which creates a change over of Alaska and the North Pacific. It just takes longer for something to happen from that respect. On the other hand, you're right about the Western Pacific storms. The ones that recurve east of Japan are the ones that usually are pattern change drivers, let's say, because those are the ones that recurve east of Japan that wind up going up into the Gulf of Alaska, and then perhaps that probably causes uh, a faster change to occur across North America, whereas something in the Atlantic might take the better part of a week to 10 days in order, or maybe even longer, in order for it to play out.
Yeah, Chuck Cardillo brought something up on the chat board, and to answer his question, if you could switch back to my screen where I'm sharing something from the Climate Prediction Center for just a moment.
One moment, please. Let's see if I can do this. Took me a while to figure it out the other time. Okay. All right. Yeah, you still have that drought map up.
Well, this is a different one now.
Okay. Good.
This is I showed of course the Northeast and also the southwestern United States, but now Chuck Cardillo writes, why is Delaware County not on that drought map? Our brooks are either completely dry or running at a trickle, and our large Delaware River you could walk across. So to answer that question, I thought maybe it might have been a factor of the scale of the map. So now I'm looking directly at just Pennsylvania, only Pennsylvania. And as you can see on this particular map, now Delaware County, I presume Delaware County is right there where you can
Okay, yeah, but
see.
you're in the wrong Delaware. He's in New York, Delaware County.
Aha. Well, that explains part of the question here.
Yeah, unless they
I thought you were talking
suddenly
about
move,
Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
unless they suddenly move the Catskills down to between Wilmington and Philadelphia. Yeah,
Aha. Well,
he's up there
well,
in Delaware County.
let's go to New York State, and let's see Delaware, Greene County, and Albany County, Saratoga. I'm not exactly sure where Delaware County is, Joe. Is
I'm
that
gonna
probably
say it's probably
there? It is.
that looks like that might be
There it is, right
Delaware.
there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. And he's right if he says that that everything is running at a trickle. Certainly, you would expect that in Delaware County on this drought map. And again, this is the very latest, released just a few days ago on August the 25th, which show indications of at least abnormally dry, and they're pretty much out in the clear. And in fact, you wonder why they don't connect Ulster and Sullivan County with Broome County and Chattanga County. These counties and these counties here have abnormally dry, but then right in between, like a donut hole, is Delaware County. And according to Chuck, it is very, very dry there. So I don't know. I have no idea why the authors of this was Deborah Bathke, National Drought Mitigation Center. Maybe somebody should question her as to why.
The only thing I would bring up, which just occurred to me, it's quite possible that whenever they collect the data for some of these counties, that let's say that some counties are probably better at collecting and distributing their data than others. So I mean, I just throw that out there because um, you know I've seen
Maybe they're
instances where you're looking at numbers and they don't seem to make sense, and then you look and you say, oh well, maybe oh here's the reason. They haven't been, the numbers for this particular geography hasn't been updated for 3 weeks, and everybody else has.
you see like 2-3 weeks ahead down the road from now, everybody in New York State has at least abnormally dry or moderate drought, except for Delaware County, which will still be in the white because of lack of any data points.
And I would just probably, not that I don't love the Binghamton office, but for a long time, the NWS at Binghamton was a little bit slow, let's say, for certain things, especially in the wintertime. They seem to be a little bit slow on the uptake. So I'm going to guess that Binghamton's, that's their, jurisdiction. I'm just putting it out there. I don't mean to be, negative here. I'm just putting it out there.
All right.
All right, you're back full screen. This is exciting.
Wow.
Yes. Now this means that I have to once again figure out how to get you out of full screen. So hang on 1 second. Are you unshared?
Yes, I am.
All right. So let's see. I can shrink you. But I'm not ready to shrink you yet. So let me go. Hold on. I'll shrink you in a minute. Uh, this is fun. So just want to run real quick through. We'll just for the rest of the GFS model here, and for the rest with this high offshore and the onshore flow, you can see there's next to nothing going on as far as showers and thunderstorms. Hot weather comes in tomorrow and Tuesday. I thought we could certainly make it back up into the 90 or better tomorrow and Tuesday. In much of the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. Here comes your cold front for Tuesday evening with some showers and thunderstorms, possibly accompanied by strong gusty winds. But I'm not impressed. That goes out Wednesday. Looks like maybe a secondary front of some sort comes through early Thursday morning. That brings in some nice dry air toward the end of next week and into next weekend. But here we go through the Labor Day holiday weekend. And if you want to believe this, Joe, it's not going to be. If you're looking for rain, keep looking because there is just nothing here of consequence. And you can see the tropical systems that the models developed. The one on the bottom of the screen in the Gulf of Mexico. Make sure it's give you a bit of visibility here, and then the one east of the Bahamas that stalls for about 2 days and then runs up to the northeast and then to the east northeast from there. So again, the two takeaways today I would say are the fact that we're seeing the models picking up on tropical systems, and the other takeaway is the fact that it ain't gonna rain of consequence anytime soon. Let's put it that way.
And again, going along with the Climate Prediction Center, saying that we're going to have a spate of dry days, a long, protracted spell of dry weather, maybe right on through the first 20 or 25 days of September. So we'll see how that all pans out. Thank you very much, Chuck Cardillo, for hitting Super Chats. He says, thank you for looking up Delaware County and why it's not on the drought monitor. Or as he puts it, the Mona Rota.
Yeah, we have actually a fairly decent crowd for a Sunday morning, which usually everybody's out and about at the beach, at or the pool or whatever. I guess maybe it's if they don't want to be outside in the heat, they could be inside in some cool, comfortable air conditioning situation, which is a plus. And also, it helps that I've kind of figured out most of the technical issues, which is even better. So now we actually have audio, and we don't have spinning circles of death and that kind of thing. So on that note, why don't we?
And thank you, Leon Probitsky, who just hit Super Chat
Yes, thank you, Leon.
with the laughing fox.
Let's see. I just got.
Yes, and Dennis Cassia on the chat board. For those of you who are interested in space flights, don't forget the Artemis launch tomorrow morning at 8:30 on NASA TV. Actually, Dennis, I saw this morning while watching CBS Sunday Morning that they said they're going to have special coverage on Channel 2 in New York. I get the impression, Joe, that everybody's going to drop everything, turn away from politics and the like for a few minutes around 8:30 tomorrow morning, and just like the good old days, they're going to go over to Cape Canaveral to watch the launch of this unmanned, let's stress this, it's an unmanned rocket to the moon, but it is the rocket that we hope eventually in the next couple of years does send Americans back out into space toward the moon, maybe by 2024 or 2025. And this is going to be the Artemis launch tomorrow. This is going to be the biggest, the most potent rocket that has ever been launched by either the United States or Russia or anything else. This is even going to surpass the Saturn V, which sent astronauts to the moon during the Apollo era back in the late 60s and early 70s. Over 8 million pounds of thrust. And this is going to be just a monstrous launch, larger even than the Saturn V, larger than the space shuttle. So if you really want to see something that you've never seen before, and if they do get it off, and I have some question about that, because whenever they have these kind of launches, Joe, always at the last minute there's some kind of a glitch. Well, wait a minute, we're going to have to hold the count for a little bit. And sometimes they even scrub and have to postpone it to another day. But if they do get this off tomorrow, it's really going to be something to see. I don't know if you remember, Joe, 1967, when they launched the first Apollo Saturn V in November of 1967, Walter Cronkite was on the air for that launch. It was at 7 o'clock in the morning in November of 1967. CBS was like 3 miles from the launch site at the where all the television stations, all the media people are, 3.5 miles away. They didn't have any idea how powerful the Saturn V was going to be in comparison to, let's say, the previous missions, the Gemini missions, the Redstone rockets, the Atlas rockets. Those were significant. But the Saturn V put them all to shame. And so when they said ignition and liftoff, and you could see this on YouTube. Anybody wants to see this, go on YouTube, type in Saturn V, comma, CBS, comma, Cronkite. When the damn thing went up, Joe, it was so powerful that you hear Cronkite saying, "My goodness, the building is shaking. The building is shaking. My goodness." And he actually had to put his hand on the window of the studio as they're looking out over the rocket. The window was shaking violently. And Cronkite said later on, he said, "I thought the window was going to break because of the powerful concussion, the sound concussion on the Saturn V." And then you hear, like, as it moves up into space, you hear Cronkite's voice says, "Oh, our roof is starting to come down."
We have
So that was a Saturn V. Tomorrow will be the Artemis rocket, which will be even more potent, more powerful, and it'll be interesting to see what that does tomorrow when it is launched into space.
We have unconfirmed reports that the windows are shaking here at CBS.
So,
That I could sort of see Walter doing it with that sort of calming demeanor.
he wasn't calm.
No,
That's the
I
other
would
great thing about
imagine.
listening. You listen to this you watch it on YouTube. He was far from being calm. He was like, "The building is shaking. The building is shaking."
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I've been to 4 shuttle launches, not Saturn V. I wish I had seen a Saturn V. And in the very first shuttle launch that I saw, which was STS-2, the second shuttle launch ever of Columbia, when that thing went up, it was like a wave, a sound wave that hit you, and it was like it was beating on your chest, the concussion, the sound waves. So that, given the atmospheric conditions, you could have quite a bit of shaking and vibration with the sound by some of these super duper rockets. And that first Saturn V, by the way, up in the Palisades, at the Lamont Doherty Research Center at the Palisades, the Earth Center, they picked up on their seismographs. They were able to pick up the shaking from that first launch of the Saturn V. So it should be something well worth looking forward to seeing tomorrow morning again, scheduled, I believe, at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, if it does go off on time from Cape Canaveral.
All right. All right, let's do. I got 2 questions left from Briller Jeopardy from the other day. So, and I also did something where I could actually speed up the chat board a little bit. So let's see if we can get the folks on the chat board to play along. So here are the remaining 2 questions that I didn't get to. What movie, Joe, what movie holds the record for leading the weekend box office the most weeks? Okay, which is 15, by the way. Okay.
Okay.
So here are the choices: E.T., Star Wars, Titanic, Avatar, or Avengers Endgame. So, what movie holds the record for leading the weekend box office for the most consecutive weeks, which is 15? E.T., Star Wars, Titanic, Avatar, or Avengers Endgame?
You know, for something to be maintained for 15 consecutive weeks, it has to be something that appeals not only to a certain sector of the audience that might be interested, let's say, in the adventures, but I think to the family in general.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, the only movie of that bunch that seems to be of that caliber or nature to me would be E.T. I would have said E.T.
Okay. Craig Carlberg says Star Wars. Tim says Titanic. Leon Probitsky says Star Wars. Northern Grace says Titanic. Christinapedia is talking with Jason Schaefer. Uh, Avatar, Christinapedia. Frank Riccio says Titanic. Jason Schaefer says Avatar. Steve Lapointe says Avatar. Joseph Gallagher is going to say Avatar. Now Christinapedia goes to Star Wars, even though she said Avatar first. No, the chairman, you cannot guess since you know the answer. Jason Schaefer agrees with that. And the answer is David Carter says Star Wars. Craig Carlberg is saying hello to Alaska. The answer is Titanic, which also reminds me of the old joke that what was the difference between NBC and the Titanic, Joe?
The Titanic had music.
The Titanic had right. The Titanic had entertainment. Correct.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, of the top 10 U.S. box office hits of all time, all right, only two are not classified as a Marvel Star Wars sci-fi movie. Okay, can you name those two movies?
No. Say the question one more time.
Of the top 10 U.S. box office hits of all time, only two are not classified as a Marvel comic book, the comic book stuff movies or a Star Wars movie or any type of sci-fi fantasy type movie.
Well, it would have to be, then it would have to be Titanic, would have to be one of those two.
Well, the Titanic is one of those two.
All right.
And Steve Lapointe is actually getting the second one correct. Top Gun is the other.
Wow.
And I'm happy because I figured out how to speed up the chat board, and now the responses are going up almost immediately after we open our mouths, which is great. So that's good. We didn't have any audio issues, I think, to speak of today, so that's good. No circle of death, so that's good. So I guess I spent my last 3 days trying to figure all of this out, and I think I
If
figured
you
it
can
out.
figure, now if you could figure out why I can't use my headphones.
All right, why don't you, since we're on a spate of luck here, I was going to ask, turn your headphones on. Let's see if we get feedback. This could be a revelation, folks, that the Lord is shining upon my soul.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Now, do I have feedback or
No, I'm the one that was having feedback, and guess what?
what?
I'm not having feedback.
Hey, fantastic.
Okay, you're a teensy bit loud, which is fine, but I can live with that. But no feedback.
Wonderful.
See, I always had this, and it's so true. I get to a point sometimes with technology stuff where I get so frustrated, I refuse to do anything more, and I throw my hands up, and it's like I don't care. And inevitably, it may not happen right away, and sometimes it could be weeks or even months, but I'll just wake up one day and I'll turn something on, and all of a sudden it'll be working again. So I don't know what I did. I mean, I know what I did this weekend, and anyway, I'm very happy. So let's Knock on wood that it stays this way.
Yes, very, very good. Now there is one alteration to our normal schedule for the upcoming week.
Right. And that's Thursday.
That will be Thursday. Mrs. and Mr. and Mrs. Rayo will be celebrating their wedding anniversary on that day.
Yes.
It'll be our anniversary. No, it'll be our 38th wedding anniversary. 38 years I've been with this woman.
Congratulations.
So this coming Thursday, we are going to get in the car. We're going to travel down into the big city. We'll have dinner somewhere on Broadway. And then when we're finished with dinner, we will walk to 41st Street in the Netherlander Theater and catch Billy Crystal in his final few days. It is the last performance will be next Sunday, September 4th, but we're going on our anniversary, September 1st, to see Billy Crystal in Mr. Saturday Night. And this is going to be a real treat for me because I've never seen Billy Crystal live and in person before. So, and I've heard this is a riotously funny performance or get together. So I'm looking forward to it. I know Renata's looking forward to it. So that's where we'll be on Thursday. So this week, I guess, Joe, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we take an extended holiday for the extended holiday for Labor Day holiday weekend.
All right. Well, I may go solo. I don't know. I'll see.
Well, I've always asked you when I'm not available, why don't you
because they're not available.
Oh, well. How about Addison Green? How about Brittany Bohr?
Yeah, they don't do YouTube. They're not the sort of persons that do YouTubes.
Even his eminence, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Oh, Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald. I haven't heard from Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald in a while. He's always welcome to join the party, but he's a busy man. He's getting ready to go back to school. He's got he's got his 3 children, and they keep him busy. But Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald is always welcome on this show. That's my for people who don't know, that's my name for Brian, is Terrence.
Yes.
Is Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald. If you grew up in New York City and went to Catholic church, you would understand the connection to, because we were always praying for Terrence Cardinal Cook, Archbishop of New York. So right. I just took that and made it Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald, because for years you had to be. I mean, you had to be Irish. You had to be an Irish Catholic to be a cardinal in New York City. That was a rule.
And then there was those many years on the Don Imus show, Imus in the Morning, where he had one of his colleagues do an imitation of Cardinal O'Connor, and continued to do Cardinal O'Connor even after Cardinal O'Connor passed away. For goodness' sake.
Cardinal O'Connor was not one of the more popular cardinals. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And we'll just leave it. We'll leave it there.
Mm.
All right, so that does that for today. Everybody, head out. I'm going to take the dog to the dog park. He didn't go this morning, and I didn't either. So I'm going to take the dog to the dog park, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here. Most appreciated. Glad all the technical gremlins have been worked out of this, and hopefully they stay worked out. And we'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Time.
See you later.